Hello and welcome to Authentic Parenting. I am Anna Seawold. Throughout the month of January, we're celebrating the 10th anniversary of the podcast by releasing 10 special episodes from the archive. So far, we have shared 10 years, many lessons, a personal message to begin 2026. This is a 10-minute message from me, and I highly encourage you to start with this one. Next, we had 10 years of podcasting, revisiting our 100 milestone episode. Then we had 10-year celebration, parenting, podcasting, and the green stroller moment. Then I released a 10-minute conversation with my then 10-year-old daughter titled 10 Minutes, 10 Years Ago, a conversation with my 10-year-old. Then we had traditions, transitions, and why 2017 was an important year for the Authentic Parenting podcast. Today, I am highlighting another oldie but goodie. From the very beginning of the podcast, I experimented with different formats. We had Ask Me Anything episodes, on-air coaching calls, roundtables with listeners, and what became a favorite for many years, the monthly special episode. That format was simple. It had 3 segments: examples from our homes, where we talked honestly about parenting struggles and successes from our own lives; What's Up With You, where we answered listener questions; and our favorite finds of the month, where we shared books, podcasts, and resources we loved. Those episodes were a lot of fun to record, especially when our kids were younger and there was no shortage of stories to tell. I originally created the monthly special episodes with my colleague, Sarah McLaughlin. Later, I teamed up with my still occasional co-host, Dr. Laura Froyen. Laura and I continue to record episodes together today, though the format has evolved quite a bit over the years. Today, I am delighted to share one of those early special episodes with Sarah McLaughlin. Enjoy a little time travel as Sarah and I share laughs, lessons, and real-life moments from our homes back then. Hello and welcome to Authentic Moments, a podcast where we talk about ideas and strategies for personal growth in the context of parenting. I am Anna Seawold, a parent educator who is passionate about personal development, living life authentically, and parenting from the heart. Today, we have a very special episode again. With me here today is my friend, colleague, and co-host, Sarah McLaughlin. And I believe I said her last name correctly this time.
Hi, Anna. Yes, you did. It's Sarah McLaughlin. Hi. I'm also a parent educator. I'm a compassion coach, a child behavior decoder, and a warrior for kindness. And I live up here in Maine, and I'm delighted to speak with you again.
Yay! Let's get the show started. So Sarah, we have 3 segments. First one is examples from our lives. Then we have some listener questions. And this time around, we decided to answer a few listener questions. And we have a voicemail question and some written questions. And we will conclude our show by sharing our favorite things, books, podcasts, blogs, whatever we have discovered, read, and enjoyed this past month. Are you ready?
I am. Let's dive in. So, Anna, let's start off by talking about examples from our own homes. You know, we are certainly doing the fun and delightful and sometimes tough work of parenting in our own homes. We both have 8-year-olds, coincidentally. So what's something that has been going on in your home recently, or a tale you can tell?
Since the school year started, I am going to share something related to that. My daughter is in 3rd grade, and to clarify, I she does not have any chores per se. We don't have a chore chart. We don't believe in that. But this year I did something different. And I assigned a responsibility to her to empty her lunchbox every day after school. It's a simple task, and I feel like she can be responsible for that. And since it's the beginning of the school year, it's an adjustment period. I understand that children go through a lot of stress, and when they come home, obviously the first thing is not attend to the lunchbox or to do your homework. But I want to reinforce this responsibility. And so the first couple of days I would remind her, sweetie, did you empty your lunchbox? I see your book bag is still on the floor. Is the lunchbox still there? So after a few prompts, she would do it. But one day, it's approaching dinner time, and I noticed that the lunchbox wasn't emptied. And perhaps I was having a hard time that day as a busy mom living in a modern age. So I prepared the dinner. Here we are, sitting down, eating dinner together. And I just lost it. By the way, sweetie, where is your lunchbox? You didn't empty your lunchbox. How many times did I tell you to take out your lunchbox? How hard is it to take out the lunchbox and put the ice pack in the blah, blah, blah? And and I went on and on and on. We do everything for you. You have no responsibilities. You don't know. There are kids out there who have so many chores. You're so lucky. Then I started going into when I was your age. You know what I used to do? Blah, 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 blah. So she was listening and making grimaces and things like that for the most part. And then she looked at me and she said, "Can I just enjoy my dinner?"
Oh boy, I love it.
So that was this awakening moment. And the first thing I wanted to say is, no, of course not. The lunchbox is still there. You can't enjoy your dinner. But I caught myself and I said, this is ridiculous. Why am I getting even into this? This is so silly. So I said, I apologize, sweetie. Let's have a nice dinner together. Even though from her look, I could tell it wasn't nice anymore. But after that, I apologized and, I said, but I still expect you to do your lunchbox every day. I don't like reminding you. I know you're 8 years old and I trust that you can do that. And I said, isn't it a simple task? Do you feel overwhelmed? She said, no, mommy, I can do that. And for the most part, she's doing it until this day. So I think, I don't know. What do you say?
I love that you caught yourself in lecture mode and were able to retrace your steps and get off the my friend Casey O'Rourke calls it the emotional freight train. You were on it and you realized you were on it and you were able to step off and say, yes, let's come back to this after dinner. I also love the fact that you said assigning a responsibility instead of, doing a chore. Chore has such a yucky tone to it. So, assigning a responsibility is lovely. We definitely want our kids to know how to be responsible and accountable for their actions. So, love that.
And how about you? Do you have anything to share this month?
Oh, let's see. I'm sure I have a thought around just yesterday where I lost my temper a bit. See, it happens to us too. It was a minor skirmish and it was handled relatively quickly, but we went to leave the house for school and we got halfway down the road and my son exclaimed in a dramatic fit of high emotion, "Oh, I left my book at home. Ah!" And he has a tendency, like many 8-year-olds, to when something goes wrong in his life, he wants to blame the parent because he doesn't want to take responsibility for that bad feeling. And the funniest thing about it was I had actually seen his book on the counter and I had stuck it in his backpack. And I said, "Oh, sweetie, actually your book's in your backpack. I put it in there for you." And because he was still on the emotional freight train, he said, "Well, you didn't tell me that," in this wretched, horrible tone. And I kind of gave him a little bit of a side eye. I was like, "Really? Okay, well, I certainly did put it in your backpack, and I certainly didn't have to tell you about it. And we ended up having a good laugh about it. But as an example of how absolutely unreasonable children can be, and how even though they are on the emotional freight train, we can, still do our best work and best job to stay off of it. It's always most helpful, right?
Yes. Well, thank you for sharing that. It's a cute story. And I can say that my 8-year-old sometimes has similar reasoning too. Okay, so Sarah, let's dive into answering some of our listeners' questions. Well, this is the first question. It goes like this. My 2-year-old seems to be very bossy. She demands that I always leave my hair open, sometimes don't sing a song, and don't put up a song or even drive a certain way, like use both hands. I love that. How
That's
can
cute.
I make her understand that I get to make my own choices or no backseat driving? It
Yeah.
seems to me like this could have been written by a preschooler or by a child complaining about the parent. They would
So
usually
funny.
say, how can I make my mom understand that I want to make my own choices?
Exactly. Yeah, that's so funny. I think well, for the first of all, it's really important for parents to have a basic understanding of what kind of developmental norms and developmental leaps a child might be taking in the age range that they're in, because a lot of us don't know that it's extremely typical for 2-year-olds to, once they become more autonomous and realize they're separate from their parents, that they want to, be in charge of that parent, and they tend to get a little bossy, and that's very common. It doesn't mean anything about your child's personality or who they're going to be in 20 years. So I think that can help take the charge off of bossiness for parents. And it's very typical for them. I've been told by 2-year-olds to keep my hand on the wheel and to, all of this backseat driving stuff. It's actually pretty hilarious. So I think that the most helpful suggestion is to be really playful with this kind of bossiness. I tend to kind of play into it as a way to get laughs going, because they're very serious when they're telling you what to do. And if you can, I tend to comply and become very like, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, just in kind of a jokey way to get the laughs going, because there's sort of like some tension too for kids around how much can I be in charge of, and who is really in charge here. If we're separate, who's in charge? And there's a safety for young children that comes when the grown-ups can step kindly and calmly into their authority, but not lord it over the child. So that's where the playfulness can come in. And also if kids take that opportunity, if it's like, no, I don't want your hair, up in a ponytail, take it down. And you might check in with yourself and say, actually, I don't want my hair in my face right now, so I'm going to keep it up in a ponytail. And I understand if that upsets you. And then if your child becomes irrationally upset, that's okay. That's a good time to just say, yep, you wanted my hair up. The fact that it's something ridiculous like a ponytail doesn't take away from the fact that 2-year-old might just need to kind of dump their emotional cup, so to speak, and they'll move right through it. And eventually, after 5 minutes of crying, they won't care anything about your ponytail.
It comes down, yes, I agree with what you said. And it comes down to discovering that they are separate human beings. It's about separateness, right? It's about keeping that playful attitude and letting your child know that I'm a separate human being and I can keep my hair in a ponytail. And by stating that, the child will eventually understand that this is not her territory to control her mom.
Right. But imagine if you got into a power struggle where you were like,
yes,
I am putting it in a ponytail. You're not, don't tell me what to do. Like, that's a crazy conversation to get into with a 2-year-old whose brain is not done developing, right? Okay, here's another one. My soon-to-be middle child, this mom is due with number 3 this spring, is a month away from being 2. How do we help ease her through the strong-willed, defiant, and general unrest that comes with being 2? We understand that she is a tiny person with giant emotions and would love advice on how to make this time less overwhelming for her.
Well, first of all, congratulations for having another baby. Yay, that's great.
Exciting.
So it's great that she understands that she's a tiny person with giant emotions. She seems like to me that she's a very mindful mom already, and she's anticipating that things may not go her way when the baby comes around. But I think You can never be prepared enough,
Yeah, sure.
You cannot prepare your 2-year-old ahead of time, but listen to the emotions now as they rise, connect, invest time in connecting and spending more time with your child. And I'm sure you can elaborate, Sarah, on play listening or stay listening.
Yeah, those are tools from the Hand in Hand Parenting website. They have 5 listening tools. And, play listening is just being able to understand that your child is in a very different developmental phase than you, and that play is really their first language, and utilizing that as a way to connect, even when their emotions are running high, can be helpful. And then stay listening is what you might move into if they aren't able to respond to your playfulness, which sometimes they aren't, which is okay. And that's just offering spacious, wide arms of compassionate and ears of compassionate listening, and not trying to change, fix, or distract from the big feelings that come. And as much as you can do that with a young child before a baby arrives around things that seem unrelated, and a 2-year-old isn't really going to understand the concept of a new baby until the baby is there. Like you said, there's in some ways you can't really prepare for the the emotional hit that a 2-year-old is going to take. But knowing that it's going to happen and preparing yourself. Getting, I love this term allo parents. I just learned this term a couple of years ago, which is the aunts and uncles and the substitute parents that many cultures have, godmothers, godfathers, people who take an active role in enriching a child's life. Those kinds of resources are fantastic to set up ahead of time. Not everybody lives in close proximity to blood family, but if you have childless friends, often love to hang out with kids. I used to be the childless friend who would hang out with kids, and it was really fun. And those folks are really resourced because they aren't parenting themselves. So I like to offer that up to people, especially folks who have larger families. It's really helpful to get those kinds of supports in place.
Great, thank you. Let's take another question. Surprisingly, Sarah, we got many questions related to toddlers and 2-year-olds this time around.
Big shocker. Not 3-year-olds, huh?
This one goes like this. I am trying very hard to respond calmly and respectfully. I just don't know how to respond when my son gets frustrated that he can't do something. Today at the park was a perfect example. He was climbing up the ladder and got frustrated, scared that he couldn't do it. I want him to try and not just give up. How do I encourage him while still being respectful of his feelings? I love this question.
Yeah, me too. So this is what I like to call a learning edge, really, for lots of parents, because I think the struggle is common, is that we want to honor our child's ability to self-assess what they're ready for. And if they're saying, I'm scared and I can't do it, part of us wants to respect that. But then another part of us is worried, right? Is worried that they're going to become a person in the future who gives up easily or who can't, persevere. And I think that what's important, if I was in this situation, would be to kind of move in closer and connect and offer support and kind of scaffolding for whether or not they want to move forward, and kind of being okay with whatever their situation is. Like, I wouldn't rush in to rescue them from the ladder, but I also wouldn't stand way back and be like, you're good, you're fine, you can do it. I would kind of try to meet somewhere in the middle. Like, I would move in closer without, helping physically and say, I'm right here. Let's check in with your body. I'm going to make sure you don't fall, and kind of guide them along in that connected, supported way, which takes, us being aware that we have anxiety about what our child does and being able to manage that piece. Does that make sense? It does.
Yes. Yeah. I usually say, don't invalidate the child's inner experience. If the child says, Mommy, I'm scared to climb up the ladder. Usually parents with well intentions, they say, no, you're not. Come on, you can do it. Try it.
Right.
But
yeah,
what's
pushing kids not so good.
But what's the child's inner experience? Maybe he's scared. You can say, oh, you're scared? Maybe we can sit together here or close to the ladder together. And then maybe once the child sees that the parent is near and not pushy, he will want to try again, because children always want to master new skills. That drive is in them naturally,
Yes.
right? So all
Yes.
they need is a little validation that I'm scared. Can you hold my hand? Can you be by me and validate that I'm scared? And I think they will go on and try again.
Yeah, I agree. That's excellent advice.
Mm-hmm.
Super. Well, do we want to move on to our recorded call?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Ina, and I have two daughters. One is almost 6 years old, and the other one is 6 months. And I have a question regarding threats and/or natural consequences. When we are running late in the mornings, I find myself more often than I like to use sentences like, "If you don't put your shoes on, we cannot stay so late on the playground anymore," or things like that. And what would be a real natural consequence, and what is a threat? And what can I do to avoid these threats? Thank you so much.
I love this question. And aren't we all guilty of using empty threats?
Yeah, we sure are. Well, I love this question too. And, it's so interesting because this is a common question. Like, I hear something come out of my mouth that sounds like a threat. And my first response to this mom is like, kudos that you're hearing it. Like, you're hearing the, like, if you, then we, and that is always a threat, right? It feels like that's always a threat. But her question about natural consequences is really valid, because in this situation, to me, what the crux of the issue is where the parent is emotionally when they're delivering the message, and the tone of voice that they're using because of that emotional state that they're in. So if I say, Georgie, if we don't get your shoes on and get out the door, we're not going to have as much time to play at the playground, and my voice is heightened and I feel stressed, and so it sounds like a threat. Versus if I take a deep breath and say, we're trying to get out the door to the playground, but your shoes aren't on. I'm pretty sure if you don't get those shoes on and we don't head out soon, we're gonna have quite a bit less time at the playground, and it's calm and neutral. That is explaining a natural consequence to your child. So to me, it has to do with the emotional tone and the delivery of the message. What are your thoughts, Anna?
Well, my thoughts are the following. I know that children have a different sense of time. They live in the now.
Yeah.
They live in the moment. So they don't care about parental agendas, to-do lists, where do we have to go next. It's the moms. We are in that constant mode. We're going to go here. We're going to do that next. And we sort of skip the present moment. So I say, if you have time, if it's practical, which isn't always, allow yourself a little bit of extra time for this kind of dawdling. And my daughter sometimes that extends this time, right? They don't get ready right away. They have that extra book to read, that art project to finish before X, Y, and Z. So I say, allow yourself a little bit of extra time so you're not rushed, you're not stressed, and there is no need for threats. You have more time to prepare yourself and your child. Second, I say involve the child in the process, because to me, it's about putting the shoes on and going, right? You're trying to elicit that cooperation in that moment.
Yeah.
And if she's dawdling and doesn't put the shoes on, using that playground statement, I think, creates more resentment in the child, and the child is like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to have time to play. And sort of it creates another layer of power struggles.
Yep, I agree.
And thirdly, I would say involve the child, which I love. In this case, the child is 6 years old, and I think it's perfect to elicit good intention instead of focusing on the good behavior by asking, honey, will you be ready when the clock hits 8:30 or 6:40? Can I count on you to be ready and go? We're going to have fun in the playground. So I think just engaging the child and saying, can I count on you, because she's a busy mom, that helps. It gives more autonomy to the child. And another one would be if a child is saying, no, I don't want to put my shoes on. Sometimes they want mommy to help because they feel like even though they can do the task, they want moms to help because they love that attention, that connection that they get. So I say maybe be, helpful, assist her to move along a little effectively, and sometimes use a playful or creative approach. It depends on a situation, on a day, on your mood. So
yeah, so true.
Right?
Absolutely.
But a fantastic question, and we all do use threats. And I don't know, it seems to me that our generation, us as moms, we are using less threats with our children than our parents did with us. And I'm sure our children will use less threats with their own children. Don't you see a pattern shift?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I think that that's important too for us to not to stay out of the perfection trap. Like, we don't have to get it right 100% of the time. And we don't have to, small improvements matter, I guess, is what I'm trying to say, that if every generation, does a little bit better, we're still on a good trajectory.
Yes. And I want to thank all the listeners who sent in written and a voicemail question. They were all fantastic. And I hope me and Sarah were able to answer some of your questions and give you some good insights. You can send in your questions for our next month's episode by email info@authenticparenting.com, or if you're brave and you want to leave a voicemail question, you can call 732-763-2576, and I will link all this information in the show notes. And now, Sarah, let's talk about our favorite things. What do you got for us this month?
Great. Well, I have been lucky enough to get my hands on quite a few awesome parenting books lately, but I'm going to focus on the newly published The Danish Way of Parenting. And it is by Jessica Joelle Alexander. And I don't know how to say, is it Ibn Dissing Sandal? I'm sure I butchered that. But anyway, these two ladies, one is a Danish psychotherapist and one is I believe a social worker who is an American expatriate living in Denmark. So they wrote together about, I don't know if anyone's aware of the research that people in Denmark have been deemed the happiest people in the world, quote unquote. So these two women set out to kind of look at the underpinnings of why that was the case and if that had something to do with parenting. And surprise, surprise, they found that it really did. I won't go into all of it's a great book. It's absolutely worth reading. I thought it was fantastic. I do have a review up on my blog that maybe Anna can link to in the show notes. But I just wanted to briefly talk about they created an acronym for the word parent. And so this gives you a feel of kind of the topics that they're thinking about and focusing on when they're talking about the Danish way of parenting. So P is for play. Awesome. We've talked a lot about playfulness and using play and how much children need play in this podcast. So I loved seeing that. A is for authenticity. And that is obviously a perfect fit, Anna, for your Authentic Moments podcast here. R is for reframing. Attributing that positive intent, understanding what is driving child behavior. E is for empathy, one of my favorites. N is for no ultimatums. And I loved the use of the word ultimatums as opposed to like threats or bribes. But just like taking ultimatums off the table and how that shifts your parenting and how that shifts your relationship with your children. Because there's always like parenting as the verb and what you're doing, but then there's the parent being the person that you are and what kind of relationship you have with your child. And then T is for togetherness and hygge. And hygge is a funny Danish word spelled Hygge, which means cozy. And so togetherness and coziness, I love this idea. And it's, they live in a place where winters are long and winters are dark. And so having this element of coziness in the home is just a really lovely thing to contemplate and think about bringing to your home no matter what climate you live in. Because I think partly they're talking about emotional coziness as well. So that's my hot thing I loved this month. What about you, Anna?
That's excellent. I have not read that book, and you just made me want to read that book. I heard about it, but
yeah, it's great.
Somehow I didn't get a chance to read that book. I read a new book. It's called The Book of Human Emotions From ambiguophobia to umpty, 150 words from around the world for how we feel. It's a fascinating book because we all know how it feels to be angry. We know how joy feels, happiness or surprise, suspicion, all these familiar emotions. But here the author goes into more cultural and historical places, emotional cultures. So, for example, have you ever, Sarah, had a sudden urge to kiss someone and gain unexpected insights into why you feel that way?
That's a very specific feeling.
I know. There is a name for that.
What is it?
It's called basorexia.
Oh, interesting.
Well, another one that I love, I want to read just a couple of the descriptions. And
so fascinating.
It is pretty fascinating. And you will discover many emotions you didn't know existed, but you felt them before. So this one, I've been feeling this one lately. It's called toska. It's a Russian emotion. And a Russian emotion once described by Vladimir Nabokov as a dull ache of the soul, a longing with nothing to long for, a sick pinning, a vague restlessness. Have you felt that way before?
I probably have. Melancholy. Melancholy is the best thing I can think that matches, but I love the specificity. It's so interesting.
I know. And the ones that there's two more I want to read quickly. One is from Japan. And it's pretty fascinating how different cultures have different emotions and what do they mean, right? It seems to me like even though we don't have the terms in our own languages, but these feelings are universal. We all felt them. So this one is pretty fascinating. Many of us on occasion feel the urge to crumple into the arms of a loved one, to be cuddled and comforted. It is important. It is important and reviving, this sensation of temporary surrender in perfect safety. The feeling it gives us is not exactly captured in English, but Japanese people know it as amai. In Japan, amai is commonly acknowledged as part of all kinds of relationships, felt not only between family members, but with friends and in the workplace too. And then it goes on and on with examples and things like that. But I think this is pretty fascinating.
Yeah, very much so. I love how it highlights the inadequacy of the English language, that there are these nuanced words for very nuanced feelings in other languages. That's very cool.
And let me read you the last one. Otherwise, I would go on and on. But this is the last one, which I certainly felt many times. There is an emptiness after visitors depart. The walls echo. The space that felt so cramped while they were there now seems weirdly large. And though there is often relief, we can also be left with a muffled feeling, as if a fog has descended and everything seems rather pointless. And this is from the indigenous Baining people who live in the mountains of Papua New Guinea, are so familiar with this experience that they name it Aumbuk, if I pronounce it correctly. They believe that departing visitors shed a kind of heaviness when they leave, so as to travel lightly. This oppressive mist hovers for 3 days, creating a feeling of destruction and inertia and interfering with the family's ability to tend to their home. And then they have a tradition of filling a bowl with water, leaving it overnight, which absorbs apparently the festering air. And then the next morning they use that water to water some trees because they believe whereupon ordinary life resumes. I think it's just so beautiful.
So cool. Yeah, I love that. It opens up a window into other cultures, and that's very cool.
That is. And speaking of cultures, my podcast has many listeners from around the world. I was looking at the statistics the other day, and there is 184 countries, people from around the world listen to the podcast. So I would really, really love to hear from those people who can contact me and share what emotions are common or what they have in their own countries, in their cultures, and share with us. I would absolutely love to hear from other people. Wouldn't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
And they can do so by emailing me at info@authenticparenting.com or calling me. My number will be in the show notes, or joining Authentic Parenting community Facebook group and starting a conversation. Sarah, thank you so much for joining me for this special episode of Authentic Moments. It was a real pleasure.
Oh, thank you. I had a great time. Thanks again for having me.
And that's it for this episode of Authentic Moments. Thank you so much for listening. A big thank you to those of you who submitted questions. Ina, thank you so much for submitting a voicemail question. You guys rock. Thank you, thank you, thank you. For our next special episode, we do accept questions now. So if you want to be part of our show, which I think is pretty cool, send in your questions. The number to call to leave a voicemail question is 732-763-2576. Again, the number is 732-763-2576. If you prefer to send in written questions, email will be your choice. So send in your questions to info@authenticparenting.com. If you haven't subscribed to Authentic Moments podcast, please go ahead and hit subscribe, and please share it with a friend. Also, I would really appreciate, and it would be really helpful, if you could quickly rate and leave a brief review of the show on iTunes. It really helps other listeners to make a decision. People usually read the reviews before listening to a podcast. I don't know about you, but I always read reviews and ratings when I'm purchasing something online. And I find that most people are very honest usually in their reviews, and it's so generous of them. So I would really appreciate if you could do that for Authentic Moments. For everything related to this episode, links, the books we mentioned, the blog article Sarah referred to, and the contact info, check out the description of the podcast on iTunes, or if you're listening on SoundCloud, check out the show notes. And as always, connect to the present moment, to yourself and your children. Until next week, I am Anna Seawolf, and this is Authentic Moments.